All kinds of talk about QB1, but we are here to tell you he's the MVP and not overrated in 2025 today. I'm Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back in, Chiefs Kingdom to a special Friday show. We have a ton for you. We appreciate you joining us here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We appreciate you everydayers. And those of you that are already subscribed, if you're not, go get that here on the YouTube platform, on audio, on anywhere that you can get a podcast, you can get us. And if you want that much more, get on the text line at 816-357-8781. That's for our everydayers, our locos, and we appreciate you guys. Couldn't do it without you. We have a ton to go over today. It is Chris Clark from KC Chiefs Corner. I'm Ryan Tracy from NFL 33 and RGR Football, as well as Rogue Analytics. We're going to go over Trey Watch because it's ticking down. We are 5 days out from the deadline as we record this, and it is a big, big deal. That's coming up later in the show. The Chiefs quarterbacks that aren't QB1 are an interesting bunch this year. What will it look like? Who might contribute? And who might be trade bait? That's where I'm coming from. But we start with Patrick Mahomes. And right now, he's got less hair. I think he's got less gut. But everybody wants to call him fat and overrated, and I don't understand what's going on. He is neither of those things.
Yeah, you kind of stole the thunder right off the top. I look at everybody calling him overrated, and it's just you sit there and you go, 5 Super Bowls in 7 years. How do you call that overrated? Like I don't understand. Like I understand he's lost 2 Super Bowls. Okay, how many QBs haven't even made a Super Bowl?
Honestly, no offense to our buddy Joe Marino, and he does have a legitimate gripe. That's fine. How many Super Bowls has Josh Allen been in? So I don't want to
say the same thing. Joe Burrow's been to 1. He lost. Josh Allen's been to 0 because he can't get past the guy that we're talking about right now.
Right.
And that's all it really comes down to. He can't get past Patrick Mahomes. That's
and for all those
reality.
Derogatory comments about how, he had the 15th rated offense in production last year. He had this, he had more, whatever, the shortest air yards of his career. Okay, fine. None of that matters because he got W's and he got enough points on the board to get those W's. Were they razor thin? Yes, fair enough. I don't want to see that anymore either. But at the end of the day, it is not – you could have Joe Marino syndrome. Not Joe Marino, I'm sorry. I almost conflated you. If Joe sees this, that's a compliment because I meant Dan Marino. Where you're –
that's where you're going.
Right? You're an elite arm. You're the best quarterback in the league at the time, and you have no one to throw to, no one to protect you. A run game that is not up to par, and you spend your career toiling for no Super Bowl payoff. That is what I think last year and the year before have really been the syndrome for is not Patrick's necessarily performance, but the performance of the offense as a whole, the 10 guys around him.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that. I think that you look at last year and you look at the weapons he didn't have. Travis Kelce had a down year. Rashee Rice gets hurt in, week 4? Hollywood Brown goes out before the season even starts and hardly plays anything. DeAndre Hopkins came in, and Mahomes showed that he trusted DeAndre Hopkins. He made throws to Hopkins that we haven't seen him making. I don't even know that he's been making those types of throws to Travis Kelce very much. He trusted Hopkins to be where he was supposed to be and that he would come down with the ball. He trusted his hands, and for good reason. But you look at his supporting cast last year, you look at the offensive line that was the left side of the Chiefs' offensive line last year, and that's a problem. And we've talked about it, but here's a stat that I absolutely hate. When you start talking about Patrick Mahomes, don't forget, when you start talking about him playing in 5 Super Bowls and losing 2 of them, how many left tackles has he had in the 5 Super Bowls he's had? 5. Let me get over here in front of my face. He's had 5 different left tackles. That is not going to be a formula to win for most QBs. That's not going to be a formula to win for most teams, and they're not usually going to have that kind of success to be able to get to 5 Super Bowls if your left tackle is changing every single time or every single year. And that's basically what he's dealt with his entire career in Kansas City.
I agree. And on the flip side of this conversation are the Chiefs Kingdom fanboys that are ready to crown him the MVP. Now, I believe that Travis Kelce is going to perform better. We talked about that recently. I believe that Patrick wants to go down the field more and will have more opportunity. I believe that the offense will be more balanced in order to use the play action to get some other things done. I cannot say right now today that he's ready to go from what happened last season to the MVP, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility. I'm just not ready to put the odds-on favorite on him at this point. Are you?
I'm not going to say that I'm going to say he's the odds-on favorite, but what I will say is if he has the supporting cast that it looks like he's going to have for the majority of the season, I think he could become the odds-on favorite to be the MVP.
Yep.
If all these players are able to stay healthy and they're able to be on the field, I cannot see this offense not being able to put up 30 points a game and him throwing for 40 touchdowns. And call me crazy all you want, but when he has weapons he trusts, he can move the ball and he can do whatever he wants with it. And one thing that really sticks out to me, and I wish I could remember the source I heard this. I think Steve Smith and James Palmer were actually talking on a podcast. This was a couple months ago, and they're talking about Xavier Worthy. And one of the things that they noted about Xavier Worthy is he started to come on late in the season, and we've talked about that. But one of the big things that they noted is that he didn't practice at full speed in practice the entire season. When he started to get to a point when he realized he had to practice at full speed, things started to click with Patrick a little bit more. And what the whole reason I bring that up is because when you don't do what your quarterback expects, it makes it a lot harder for him to be successful because he's not sure that you're going to be where you're supposed to be when he's running the play.
Yeah.
And the second that Worthy starts getting better and starts having a good season at the end of the year last year, and then comes alive a little bit in the playoffs and then has that deep pass in the Super Bowl, things started to click. If they can click this year, it opens everything up for the Chiefs offense because he becomes the deep threat that they haven't had in years. And that doesn't even take into account Hollywood Brown being able to take the top off of defense as well if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it is definitely something that we might have to revisit a quarter of the way into the season. It might start out that hot. We're going to have to see. But if it doesn't start hot, if something goes wrong, what's the backup quarterback? A guy that I think can play in this league and in this offense might be the best that he's ever been. Gardner Minshew is still ahead. We're going to see what he can do coming up next.
Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I've used Monarch Money for at least 7 or 8 months now, I think, and I've loved it. It is awesome to be able to have everything at your fingertips. You see, and it budgets out your money. It shows you what you're spending your money on. It shows you your income in, your income out. It is a fantastic app. You need to go give Monarch Money a try. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
When it comes to maybe the least important position on this roster, it's difficult because normally the backup quarterback is the most popular guy in town because you want to protect your starter, and starters having trouble. You definitely want to switch him out, right? That doesn't happen with Patrick Mahomes. So really, the backup quarterback positions are ones that are, I think, different for this team in that they are investments, some that might be able to pay off. And I think they are so eclectic when used. I mean, what did Carson Wentz get? A quarter last year?
Something like that, yeah.
I don't even know.
Other than the game that didn't matter, but yeah.
Sure, right, yeah. And at that point, like, it becomes, is it worth the investment they continue to make? That's the question for all of these quarterbacks. But having the new guy in town, Gardner Minshew's kind of a groovy dude. He's a big golfer, played at the Palouse. I got a lot of friends up at Wazoo. So, like, I heard a lot of good things before he ever came in the league. And I like the way he rolls. And to hear what he's been doing and how well he's fitting into the offense, it seems to be maybe the best fit of his career according to the reporters that are there and have been able to see it. I just don't know what that means for him because I still don't see an opportunity for him. Do you?
No, I don't see an opportunity, but the reality is that when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, generally speaking, he has stayed very healthy throughout his career. And I think that he's going to be in a situation where Minshew isn't really likely going to play very much. The other side of it is go back to I can't remember, it was on quarterback, but go back to the playoff game where Mahomes got injured. He didn't want to come out even when he was injured.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to come out of the game. And to a point, that's a problem to an extent. Like I think in that scenario, I wish that he would have been a little bit more okay with coming out, but I get it. His competitive fire is also what makes him so good. So you don't want to take that away from him. But you look at Minshew and what he brings to this team. He gives them a backup that I think needs to get involved into the offense in the preseason. And quite frankly, I would like to see Mahomes come out for maybe a series in week 2 of the preseason and then have Minshew play the rest of, or maybe 2 series in week 2, I guess, if you're going to play the first string the first half, and then have Minshew in the rest of the first half. He needs to have time with the receivers that are on the first team. He needs to have that playing time, and he needs to have the playing time with the offensive line to an extent as well. I do think that he brings something to this team that they didn't seem to have last year. Wentz didn't live up to what I was hoping he would. But it is interesting because you say quarterback positions. I think there's still only going to be one on this roster other than Mahomes.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. And that brings me to my favorite guy, the kid that I still think has ceiling to hit in this league. And more time with Andy Reid can only help. He was already plucked off of the Chiefs practice squad last year. Bailey Zappe got signed off of our practice squad. And I think that tells you something. The reaction that he got when he got to a new team is that this guy is fearless and he will throw it wherever he needs to throw it. And that he generally was somebody they could rely on. Okay. They didn't bring him back. He ends up back in Kansas City. Now, in what I think is maybe a little bit more of a fight for the backup position than anybody wants to admit, but I still would give Minshew the lead here by a decent margin. The question becomes, if you focus on both of them in the preseason, like you said, there's probably only one other on the active roster. They love Chris Ludekin, so he could remain as the practice squad emergency type guy. One of these two quarterbacks, either Zappe or Minshew, could be trade bait come the beginning of this season. If there's an injury, if there's somebody that, continues to hold out, or one of these rookies doesn't work out, you could see other teams, especially for Zappe, whose teams have already come calling for, maybe there's trade value there.
And the crazy thing is you start getting into what we've talked about when you start looking at the wide receiver room, and the wide receivers have some good depth down to maybe even the third string to an extent, or guys that might be playing on third team, like a Tyquan Thornton, who I think has an off chance to make the roster, but still may be getting snaps with that team because he needs snaps with the organization and to try to get into the offense and, just get acclimated and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting because Zappe is going to be playing with talent. The wide receivers that he could be playing with are going to have talent. And if they do what I just said and they bring up Minshew and let him play pretty much the entire first half, other than maybe a couple of series at the first half in the second game, maybe they bring in Zappe and they let him play with the second unit to get him a little bit more experience and roll with that. I agree with you. I think Minshew is leagues ahead of Zappe right now, at least from what I've seen in the NFL. But if you're looking at trade bait and looking at trying to maximize what you could bring to this roster either this year or in the near future, maybe one of these guys gives you an opportunity to feel like you can trade the other. It's possible, but you have to. The other side of that is you have to also let them sling it in preseason, which Kansas hasn't done a ton of in the past.
But you mentioned it with the wide receiver group. There's plenty of talent there, right? All of them need to showcase it. And maybe finally it's coming around that as Patrick is pushing for the Chiefs starting offense, to be more explosive and to look to go downfield more than it has in recent years. And that maybe that bleeds into the second and third tiers. And if Andy does decide to let them loose, you could easily come up with a package of one of the backup quarterbacks and one of the backup wide receivers to go get a decent draft pick. I think that's well within the realm of possibility.
Yeah. And we already talked about the corners a little bit too. I mean, there's there's definitely some players that the Chiefs are going to have that I think are going to have value for other teams or potential value for other teams. It's all going to come down to what they look like in preseason. The thing that, and here's what I would argue, the thing that works against Kansas City to be able to trade some of these players, especially quarterbacks and wide receivers, is they have been generally pretty vanilla in the preseason. I'm not saying they have to go away from that, but they have to open it up a little bit if they want to give the opportunity of being able to attack downfield and do a little bit more. I'm trying to remember, when's the last time you saw a wide receiver do something big in a preseason game if he didn't break a tackle on a short pass? The last one I can think of is what, Demarcus Robinson from Patrick Mahomes when he was a rookie?
Like 2019, yeah, 2018, yeah. It's been a while.
It doesn't happen very much.
Yeah. And that makes it more difficult, but hopefully there's new tricks being learned by old dogs. That's all I can say. We're gonna hope that that's the case, and we're gonna hope that they get progress made in that direction. They also have to make progress in another direction. Trey Watch is underway. What's the latest? I think he's going to come in and play on the tag. We'll talk about it coming up next. I try to phrase it as what he's going to do in a positive way. Play on the tag. Enjoy his tagged salary amount. I'm trying not to phrase it as they're incapable of getting a deal done. So I've been swinging the pendulum all week, all month, to tell you the truth. Where do you land right now?
I still think a deal gets done.
Yeah.
To me, this doesn't feel contentious at all. Kansas City has had contentious extension talks before, obviously with Chris Jones a couple of years ago. Very contentious things went through the media. This hasn't gone through the media at all. I think that they're probably a lot closer to getting a deal done than anybody knows, and that's fine. I mean, I want to be clear when I say this. Nobody knew they were even talking to Patrick Mahomes about an extension when they did an extension with him. Now, we know they're talking with Trey Smith to try to get something done. The question is, can they get it done? Are they going to be able to come to terms with what he's comfortable with and what they're going to be comfortable with? I think they do. I still think it's going to be closer to $22 million, maybe a little bit more than that per year if they get a deal done. Well, the one thing, and I've been looking at a bunch of different media, so I apologize, I don't remember the exact source, but somebody had an interview, I think, with Trey Smith, and one of his comments was that he hates losing more than he likes winning. Kind of tells you a lot about the person and what he wants to be able to do, and you're not going to have much of a better chance to do that if you go elsewhere and chase money.
That's true. That's true. And hopefully calmer heads can prevail and get to that point. My only concern is that someone in that camp, whether it's Trey or someone that represents him, feels that this negotiation is a contest, and he doesn't want to lose that either. And that's where I worry that things get stuck. And if that's the case, he's got this fallback position for him that works. Technically, it works for the team too, but in a way that isn't helpful long-term, certainly. Or should they have to make an emergency acquisition this season, it doesn't help that much. So in the end, I feel like that's the way that it goes, but maybe there's happier days ahead here as we get just a few days away from the deadline. I think the number that it comes in at this point, I don't think it matters. If it's a little over the tag number, if it's a little under the tag number, I don't think it matters. The bigger thing is to get it done so that you have the flexibility in this year's salary cap and hopefully next year's as well. In order, what are they, 37 over currently?
Something like that, yeah. I'm going to be really curious to see what the salary cap does over the next year or two, because currently I believe they are over, or they're projected to be over, but they have some really easy cuts. Juwan Taylor's probably going to be the easiest one. Right now they're 37 million over in 2026, and right now they're projecting the salary cap at About 330 or no, 290 something. So yeah, they're a little over for next year. I can't imagine that that's what the salary cap's going to be next year. So we'll see how that turns out. But when you look at this, the deal is that if you don't get a deal done with Trey Smith, he'll be. I don't think there's a situation where he doesn't show up at training camp on time because it's not going to help him to sit out. He's already signed the franchise tag, so he would be subject to penalty if he doesn't show up on time. So he'll be at training camp on time regardless. It's just a question of whether or not he's going to be happy or not as happy. Because if he gets a deal done, he'll be happy. If he doesn't, I think he'll still play and he'll be fine. He's going to have some time before camp starts to deal with it not getting done if it doesn't happen. But I still think that this deal has to get done for the Chiefs because the reality is that you already lost Joe Tooney because you traded him. And I don't disagree with the move. I think you needed to make that move. It made a lot of sense. But the whole reason you did that was so you could try to get a deal done with Trey Smith and keep him. You don't want to lose your starting guards in back-to-back years. Right. And that is the risk that they're taking if they don't get a deal done with him, because the reality is you can't pay him 120% next year. You're not going to pay him 120% of 23.5 million.
Right. That's just outlandish. It cannot be sustained.
Yeah. I mean, I guess technically speaking, in theory, you could, but I just can't see Kansas City wanting to pay him 27, 20. I'm not doing the math. 28 million, somewhere in there. It's just, you look at that and that number is prohibitive. So, at that point, it's one of those things where you look at this and you say, okay, well, we got to get a deal done this year and maybe we give him a little bit more money. The reality, though, is that Patrick Mahomes wants him in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes has a little bit of a say, I think, with the organization, and I do think that he's going to be lobbying for it to get done. And the other part of the reality on Trey's part is I don't think he wants to leave Patrick Mahomes, one, but I would just about guarantee he doesn't want to leave Creed Humphrey. Like, I understand him and Mahomes are friends and whatnot, but him and Creed Humphrey are extremely close. And I don't think I'll put it this way. I don't think a couple $100,000 or even maybe $1 million a year in APY is going to keep him from signing. If they don't get it done, the deal is much more wide, or they're much further separate than just a couple $100,000 or even $1 million a year.
Yeah, I have to think so as well. Well, we're going to keep an eye on it all weekend for you. Obviously, next week, as we get closer to the deadline, we will let you know when it happens. If you want to know instantly, make sure you're on the text line at 816-357-8781, along with all of our everydayers. You will get that information. That way, we'll have an emergency show if needed. And if not, we will do our normal thing with Matt Derrick next week. All of us, as we continue to get ready for training camp. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for getting to this point where we're only a few weeks from camp. It makes a big difference to know that you guys are with us, especially following a Super Bowl that was a disappointment. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we are ready to go. Enjoy your weekend. Have a great one, and we will talk to you Monday.